This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. On this segment, we take a look at some of the headlines you may have missed this morning. We also take a look at the political pieces we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 14th of December 2021, and I am CS.
I'm JM.
And I am Miss K. In case you missed today's headlines, here they are. Daily Nation, Uhuru's big dilemma as half cabinet joins politics. I feel like it's missing a word there. The Standard, RAILA versus Ruto, making of epic political battle. The Star, RAILA to borrow 2002 Kibaki victory plan. And finally, People Daily, RAILA rips fruits of Azimio project.
Can we just throw away the Daily Nation for missing that word you're talking about?
Definitely.
It just
It gave me a glitch.
That glitch is right there.
Yeah.
And I think that we'll just start with you, CS. Take us away.
So last week on Friday, the 10th of December 2021, in the Shakespearean sense, RAILA had greatness thrust upon him. Whether or not he desired it, Kenyans from all four corners of the Republic have declared that he is due for his appointment with destiny. Now, of the One Kenya Alliance principles, only Gideon Moi, despite having just suffered the loss of a very close family member, showed up. It is all too apparent that the families of the Kenyattas, the Odingas, and the Mois are drawn together by a sense of history, duty, and the common interest, and rightly so. It would, however, appear that Musalia Mudavadi is once again confirming the likelihood that he still has every intention of going it alone. This does not surprise us. As we have previously observed, there is a likelihood that a runoff is being engineered. We have explored what this will mean for 2022, including how an engineered runoff is part of the Moi school of politics, the classic divide and conquer strategy deployed in 1992 and 1997. We have also explored the possibilities of coalition formation after the first round in 2022. Simply put, the more strong contenders you have in the first round translates into increased odds in the second round when you bring those players together in a coalition for the runoff. We have also previously explored the advantages of slowing William Ruto down and wearing him out through election fatigue. Finally, we have also observed that a staggered election in 2 or even more rounds, if you have a nullification through our courts, would create a background of acceptance of a William Ruto loss. People slowly accepting a William Ruto loss means there will be less likelihood of violence erupting suddenly, whether spontaneously or by design, compared to a situation where he loses outrightly in a round one scenario. Now, beyond the engineered runoff, the additional question we asked ourselves this weekend is, what does Musalia and his backers stand to gain? What does he stand to benefit if he is indeed part of such an elaborate and well thought out agenda? Whether he knows he's part of the plan or not is another matter altogether. We submit that the owners of capital are not just thinking about 2022, but well beyond that. And Musalia's dividends may likely be paid out like a treasury bond that is set to mature after a number of years. In order for this to make sense, allow us here to make one or two observations. Why is RAILA's presidency being referred to as a Mandela moment? It is because RAILA's presidency will be a transitional one-term presidency. We are therefore faced with a very unique situation. For the first time in our country's history, we are knowingly facing 2 succession elections, only 5 years apart. That is 2022 and 2027. Succession elections in young democracies, especially in the global south, present huge risks for our country's stability. But the owners of capital have learned their lessons from Kenya's past. Leaving things to chance and the whims of the masses is too expensive and it is unsustainable. And please remember that the owners of capital include international capital. And as far as they are concerned, Kenya is too important. It is too big to fail. Therefore, nothing is being left to chance. The owners of capital have therefore learned that it is imperative to control as much of the terrain as possible and to plan for as many outcomes as possible as well, which may even mean engineering some of those outcomes. Those who have the greatest role to play in determining the next president of this great republic are therefore not just thinking about 2022, they have mapped out the possibilities up to and beyond 2027. both in terms of politics and economics. What does Mudavadi have to do with this? Let us take a small step back and then play it forward. When Mudavadi ran in 2013, he garnered just over 400,000 votes. He did not run in 2017. So in 2022, even if he was consumed with the most audacious sense of hubris, one does not jump from less than 500,000 votes to more than 5 million votes, which is what he will need to even stand a chance in the first round in 2022. But in order for him to get closer to that number in 2027, he needs to run in 2022 to keep building his profile. So in sum, if Mudavadi goes it alone, the first item on the agenda is to engineer a runoff in 2022. But the next item on the agenda is to position him as a serious contender in 2027. And if Raila's running mate will also be a contender in 2027, the owners of capital will have 2 candidates in 2027. Having 2 front runners means you have far greater odds. You crowd out the players that are not part of your agenda and retain control by being the author of all the likely outcomes. But then again, we could be wrong.
Interesting thoughts there.
Strategy is sacrifice, and that is where Raila Odinga is excelling over William Ruto in this 2-horse race. Let me explain by way of a story about the Brits and the Germans from the Second World War. In World War II, the main British bomber was the Lancaster. It had a crew of 7, a pilot, a flight engineer, a navigator, a bomb aimer, a wireless operator, a mid-upper gunner, and finally a tail gunner, all to go up in the air and cause destruction on underground. It had an average speed of around 400 kilometers an hour. It had 4 12-cylinder Rolls-Royce Merlin engines. It carried an average of 1.8 tons worth of bombs. And when empty, this aircraft weighed 16 tons. The thinking, according to the engineers, was the more defensive armor they had put on the bomber, the better the chance it would survive an attack. So the Lancaster had 8 machine guns manned by 3 gunners. Now, all this was good in theory, but in practice, because of all this defensive armor, the plane was simply impractical. It had no speed and therefore it would not be effective. It would flop if you took that off into the air. So these guys were of the view that, obviously the more guns you have, the better chance of survival. But they were dead wrong. The pioneer aviation engineer, a man by the name Sir Geoffrey de Havilland, had a brilliant idea. You needed a lot of guns for when the enemy attacked you. But what if the enemy couldn't catch you, he asked himself. What if your plane was so fast that it couldn't be caught by the Germans? Now, the German fighters, they were over 160 kilometers per hour faster than any of the Allied bombers. So Geoffrey de Havilland told the team, get rid of everything that makes the bomber capable of fighting. Make it extremely light. Make it so light that it wouldn't need to defend itself. Rather than add things, he stripped things away. The aircraft that emerged from that process, that stripping process, was known as the de Havilland Mosquito. Unlike the heavy metal bombers, it was made completely of wood. It had 2 engines instead of 4 because it was half the size. And he got rid of all the guns, so he didn't need any gunners. And the Mosquito, we're told, could carry a 4,000-pound bomb load lighter than the bigger bombers. But, and in addition, it only needed a crew of 2 people. Eventually, this aircraft, called the Mosquito, was reduced to 9 tons. And so now the aircraft could fly at a speed of 643 kilometers an hour, like a fighter jet speed at the time. German fighters were not able to catch it any longer. British bomber crews, we're told, loved it because their survival rate was many times greater than in the bigger, slower moving bombers. So what's the lesson here, finally, as I sum up? Strategy is not about adding more and more stuff. It is about taking stuff away, taking everything away until there's only one thing left. And that is the brilliance of Raila Odinga in his quest to secure the presidency in 2022. He's completely ignored One Kenya Alliance, Musalia Mudavadi, Kalonzo Musyoka, and even some of the 44% who are playing hard to get. He is seeking only one key block to his voter support base, and that is the Kikuyu and the mountain. You know, once he gets the Mount Kenya and Mount Kenya capital, the presidency is his.
Strip away all those things that do not matter.
Pack away at the unessential.
Yes, absolutely.
So today I'd like to recall Raila Odinga's history lesson to the country at the Jamhuri Day celebrations on Sunday. The president thanked Raila for his invaluable input into the Uhuru Gardens project over the last 14 months. That was a shock to me. Then he broke protocol and invited Raila, who added to the president's excellent speech by giving Kenyans a history lesson as only Raila can. So Uhuru Gardens has been a victim of our collective ignorance. Me too. We've either ignored it or misused it over the past 58 years of our independence because we did not have an understanding of the significance of the place, and we were at risk of losing our history. So that is why the president and Raila chose to undertake the Uhuru Gardens project, and Uhuru Gardens will be a place of history, unedited, as Raila told us. So the takeaway from Raila's history lesson is that Uhuru Gardens was chosen for a reason, because it was a concentration camp where freedom fighters were tortured. And Raila taught us that Uhuru Gardens is a historic place that represents an important part of our history. When we come to this garden, we should connect with the heroes of the past whom he named, the suffering we endured without bitterness, and the aspirations of our founding fathers. That's why 3 locations were negotiated by LegCo, and the open grounds or Uhuru Gardens were selected to memorialize our independence. Now, Raila taught us that the ground of the Langata concentration camps were set aside for permanent protection and designated for public use. That is why a school, a barracks, a prison, and an airport stand on those lands. In fact, torture chambers are located in Langata Primary School, and they have been preserved by the museums of Kenya. Raila also taught us that the land where Weston Hotel sits was part of the concentration camp. But there is also one thing that I think Raila forgot to teach us. And this fact was in the president's speech on Mashujaa Day. That is that someone has a title for the runway allowance at the Wilson Airport. Now, these last 2 lessons from Baba paint the fight for Langata Primary School field in new light, because Langata concentration camp created a unique record of our past, and once it is destroyed, it cannot be replaced, it cannot be recreated, it cannot be renewed. And a nation is known by 2 things: what we choose to remember, as well as what we choose to forget. And I'll end with one more quote by Robert Heinlein, who said, "A generation which ignores history has no past and no future." Now, we have a 3-part criteria that we use to judge the headlines for you. We ask ourselves 3 questions. Is the headline topical or speculative, repetitive or groundbreaking, and thoughtful or just plain lazy? Let me do a recap, quick one. Daily Nation, Uhuru's big dilemma as half cabinet joins politics, which we tossed on site. The Standard, Ruto versus Raila, making of epic political battle. The Star, Raila to borrow 2002 Kibaki victory plan. And People Daily, Raila rips fruits of Azimio project.
I quite like the Star.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree, and I think the People Daily comes as
close second.
Yeah.
So we'll toss we'll toss first of all the Standard, then we'll keep the Star as our winning headline, and People Daily will be tabled for coming in as a close second. Onto the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country, and just like the headlines, we have a 3-part criteria that we use to judge the cartoons for you. We ask ourselves, is it humorous or dry, satirical or pessimistic and effective, or just plain lazy? Daily Nation.
Daily Nation, you have there an unseen figure who is conducting a controlled experiment, and inside the glass box you have, on the one hand, the person holding 2 test tubes, and the other side a figurine of Prime Minister Raila Odinga. And basically what this is saying is that unseen figure is Uhuru Kenyatta, and the Uhuru succession is a controlled experiment. This aligns with my script. Is leaving nothing to chance.
I'd say it's a good cartoon, but we keep it in the parking bay and take a look at the Standard.
Yeah, in the Standard, we have a cartoon depicting President Hassan of Tanzania meeting with delegations from China, the EU, and IMF, hawking their money. and they're standing over the storm of a new constitution. Dark cloud over there, and she's telling the delegation that the storm will soon pass. The context here is that there are calls for a new constitution in Tanzania, and the calls people feel that President Hassan is not particularly responsive to. I think she should play pata potea with them, keep them busy, take them nowhere. As Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi played with the constitution, change the constitution movement in the year, was it 1999 or thereabouts?
I find it interesting, the parallels between the histories of Kenya and Tanzania, gaining independence at around the same time. 1992, we get multi-party democracies at around the same time, and now we're debating new constitutions.
Around
the same time.
Someone would argue that maybe Tanzania is 20 years behind? I don't know. Anyway, finally, the Star, we have a caricature of our President Uhuru Kenyatta, who is standing before a Kenyan on the cross crucified on the cross of high power bills, and he says there, "You have paid dearly." I think this represents the pronouncement made by the president on Sunday that we will be reducing the power bills by 30% in 2 tranches of 15% beginning this month. Well, I do like that cartoon, and as a user of power, I'm very glad that we will be reducing those bills.
Mkombozi. Mwizi ama Mkombozi.
Mkombozi. He's really rescuing us from this people who are taking our money. So what do we think is our winning cartoon? Should we give it to the Star, should we give it to the Standard, or to the Daily Nation? I'm partial to the Star.
Why not? Let's go to the Star. I love it.
Okay, the Star gives us our winning cartoon. And we had a winning headline from the Star as well. So I guess it's a 2 for 2 today from the Star. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can find us on your TV screens or in Pang Free to Air, GoTV, and Star Times. I will end with another quote from Voltaire. Since today is about history, let me just go there. History is only the register of crimes and misfortunes, and I think we must never forget the crimes that happened there or the misfortunes that we suffer. Do have a great evening.